The basement apartment in Queens smelled like instant ramen and desperation. Sarah Chun sat cross-legged on her worn futon, laptop balanced on a cardboard box that doubled as her desk. The screen glowed with the University of Phoenix portal as she submitted her final assignment for her bachelor's degree in computer science. Outside, the November rain hammered against the small window near the ceiling, the only source of natural light in her cramped living space. 3 years. 3 years of working double shifts at the 7-Eleven on Roosevelt Avenue while studying until 2 a.m. 3 years of choosing between textbooks and groceries. 3 years of her family back in San Francisco not understanding why she chose an online degree instead of a traditional university. Her phone buzzed. A text from her older brother, Marcus. Mom's asking about Thanksgiving. You coming home this year? Sarah's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Home meant facing her family. Home meant Marcus showing off his Stanford diploma hanging in the den. Home meant her mother's disappointed sighs and her father's pointed questions about when she'd get a real education. Maybe. Still deciding. She hit send and immediately regretted the cowardice in those 2 words. The graduation ceremony would be online too. December 15th. A virtual event she'd attend alone in this basement while hundreds of other students logged in from their own isolated corners of the country. No cap and gown. No proud parents. No walking across a stage to shake hands with a dean. Her phone rang. Marcus. She considered letting it go to voicemail but answered on the 4th ring. What's up? Just wanted to give you a heads up. I might have mentioned your graduation to some people at the firm. Sarah's stomach dropped. Marcus worked at Goldman Sachs, surrounded by Ivy League graduates who probably thought online degrees came from the backs of cereal boxes. You didn't. Look, I thought I was being supportive. But then Jeff, you remember Jeff from my Stanford days, he kind of laughed. Said his kid could get a degree like that by watching YouTube videos. The familiar heat of shame spread across Sarah's chest. What did you say? I didn't really defend it, Sarah. I mean, it's not the same as a traditional degree, right? I'm just being honest. The line went quiet except for the sound of rain. Sarah, I have to go. Customer just walked in. She hung up before he could respond. There was no customer. The 7-Eleven shift didn't start for another 3 hours. She just needed him to stop talking, needed his words to stop confirming everything she already feared about herself. Sarah opened her laptop again and stared at the confirmation message. Congratulations on completing your degree requirements. She'd worked harder for this than for anything else in her life. She'd sacrificed relationships, sleep, health. She'd turned down dates because she had coding assignments due. She'd missed her grandmother's funeral because she had a proctored exam she couldn't reschedule. And it still wasn't enough. It would never be enough in the eyes of people like Jeff. People like Marcus, if she was being honest. Her roommate, Destiny, came home around 10 p.m., shaking rain from her hair. Destiny worked as a medical assistant while studying nursing at community college. They'd bonded over their shared understanding of what it meant to claw your way toward something better. You look like someone ran over your dog. Sarah managed a weak smile. Just family stuff. Destiny grabbed a beer from their mini-fridge and sat on the floor next to the futon. Your brother again? He told people at his work about my graduation. One of his friends mocked it, called it basically worthless. Destiny took a long drink. Did Marcus defend you? The silence answered her question. Destiny shook her head slowly. You know what I think? I think people like your brother and his fancy friends are terrified of people like us. We didn't have trust funds or legacy admissions. We didn't have parents who could write checks to universities. We built everything from scratch, and that scares them because it means their advantages aren't as important as they thought. Sarah wanted to believe that. She wanted to feel the righteous anger that Destiny felt so easily. But mostly she just felt tired. The graduation ceremony came and went. Sarah logged in from the 7-Eleven break room during her lunch hour, watching names scroll past on the screen. When they called Sarah Chun, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science, she was restocking energy drinks. Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered. She took a screenshot and went back to work. That night, she updated her LinkedIn profile and started applying for jobs. Not the kind of jobs her brother thought she deserved. Real jobs. Software developer positions at companies that cared more about what you could do than where your diploma came from. She was done apologizing for choosing survival over prestige. Thanksgiving arrived like a sentencing. Sarah took the Greyhound from New York to San Francisco, 12 hours of stale air and highway rest stops. She'd promised herself she wouldn't go, but her mother's voice on the phone had carried that particular tone of disappointment Sarah couldn't ignore. The family home in Pacific Heights looked exactly as she remembered. Perfect. Pristine. Expensive. Marcus's Tesla sat in the driveway next to their father's Mercedes. Sarah's Uber dropped her at the curb. Her mother opened the door wearing pearls and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Sarah, you made it. We weren't sure you'd actually come." The house smelled like roasted turkey and old money. Extended family filled the living room. Aunt Linda with her questions about Sarah's love life. Uncle Robert talking about his son's promotion at Apple. Cousins showing off engagement rings and law school acceptance letters. Marcus stood by the fireplace, drink in hand, surrounded by colleagues from Goldman Sachs. Sarah recognized Jeff immediately. Tall, expensive haircut, the kind of confident posture that came from never doubting your place in the world. Her brother spotted her. "Sarah, come meet everyone." She wanted to disappear. Instead, she walked over. "This is my sister. She just graduated." Marcus's voice carried forced enthusiasm. Jeff extended his hand. "Congratulations. Where'd you go? Berkeley? Stanford like this guy?" Sarah shook his hand. "University of Phoenix. Online program." The change in Jeff's expression was subtle but unmistakable. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. "One of those programs. That's great. My nephew's doing something similar. Takes classes between his Call of Duty sessions." Laughter rippled through the group. Not cruel laughter exactly, just casual dismissal disguised as humor. Sarah felt her face burning. It was a rigorous program. Computer science. "I worked full-time while studying." Jeff nodded with exaggerated sympathy. Sure. No judgment here. Education comes in all forms now, right? I mean, my gardener watched some YouTube videos and now he fixes computers on weekends. Self-taught. Very entrepreneurial." More laughter. Marcus joined in, unwilling to separate himself from the crowd. "Actually, Sarah put in serious work," her cousin Emily said quietly from across the room. But her voice was too soft to cut through the conversation. Jeff turned back to Marcus. "Anyway, we were talking about the bonus structure for next quarter. Private equity's looking insane right now." Sarah stood there for another moment, invisible, before walking to the kitchen. Her mother was arranging appetizers on expensive china. "You should mingle more, sweetie. Make connections. Marcus's friends are all very successful." Sarah grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge. Her hands were shaking. "Did you hear what he said about my degree?" Her mother didn't look up. "Jeff? He's just teasing, honey. Don't be so sensitive. Besides, you have to admit, an online degree isn't quite the same as what Marcus accomplished." Sarah didn't sleep that night. She lay in her childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling where glow-in-the-dark stars still clung from her teenage years. Her phone buzzed at 2 a.m. An email notification. "Thank you for your application. We'd like to schedule an interview." She sat up, heart pounding. The message was from Stripe, the fintech company. Senior software developer position. She'd applied on a whim 2 weeks ago, never expecting a response. The interview was scheduled for the Monday after Thanksgiving. Video call. She had 4 days. Sarah spent Black Friday in her old room while her family went shopping. She reviewed algorithms, practiced coding problems on LeetCode, studied Stripe's API documentation until her eyes burned. This was her shot. Maybe her only shot to prove that her degree meant something. The interview lasted 3 hours. For different engineers, each one throwing increasingly complex problems at her. Design a payment processing system. Optimize this database query. Explain how you'd handle distributed transactions. Her hands flew across the keyboard. Everything she'd learned in those late-night study sessions, every concept she'd struggled to understand while running on 4 hours of sleep and convenience store coffee. It all came pouring out. The last interviewer was a woman named Priya, Stripe's engineering director. She didn't ask about Sarah's university. She asked about a personal project Sarah had mentioned in her application, a budgeting app she'd built for low-income families. Walk me through your architecture decisions. Sarah explained her choices. Why she'd used React Native for cross-platform compatibility. How she'd optimized for users with limited data plans. The accessibility features she'd built for users who might not be tech-savvy. Priya leaned back in her chair. This is really thoughtful work. Where'd you learn to think about user needs this way? Sarah hesitated. From living it. I built it in a basement apartment in Queens while working retail. I knew exactly who needed this app because I was one of them. Something shifted in Priya's expression. Understanding, maybe. Respect. We'll be in touch soon. If you're watching this and rooting for Sarah like I am, take a second and subscribe to the channel. Because what happens next is going to blow your mind, and you won't want to miss it. Sarah returned to New York on Sunday evening. The basement apartment felt different somehow. Smaller but also safer. This was where she'd transformed herself. Where she'd refused to quit even when quitting would have been easier. Wednesday morning, her phone rang. Unknown California number. This is Priya from Stripe. We'd like to extend you an offer. Sarah's breath caught. The base salary is $175,000, plus equity and benefits. Can you start in January? $175,000. More than Marcus made in his first 2 years at Goldman Sachs. More than her parents had ever earned in a single year. Yes, I can start in January. Sarah didn't tell anyone immediately. She sat with the news for 3 days, letting it sink in, afraid that saying it out loud might make it disappear. She gave her 2 weeks' notice at the 7-Eleven, and her manager, Mr. Patel, hugged her with genuine pride. You were always too smart for this place. Go show them what you can do. December blurred past. She found a studio apartment in San Francisco's Mission District. Not luxurious, but hers. Paid for with her own substantial salary. She bought a real desk, a comfortable chair, a bed frame that wasn't a futon on the floor. Her first day at Stripe felt surreal. The office was beautiful, all glass and natural light. People greeted her warmly. Nobody asked where she'd gone to school. They cared about her code, her ideas, her ability to solve problems. Priya introduced her to the team. Sarah's going to be leading the accessibility initiative for our new mobile payment system. Leading, not assisting, not shadowing. Leading. 3 months passed. Sarah thrived. Her budgeting app experience translated perfectly. She understood users that many of her colleagues, brilliant as they were, had never had to think about. She proposed features for users with inconsistent internet access. She designed interfaces for people who'd never used a banking app before. In March, Stripe's CEO mentioned her work in an all-hands meeting. Sarah Chen's accessibility framework is exactly the kind of inclusive thinking that's going to define our next phase of growth. That evening, her mother called. Your father and I are having a dinner party Saturday. Some business associates. Marcus will be there with colleagues. You should come. Sarah almost said no. But something had changed in her. She wasn't the same person who'd hidden in the kitchen at Thanksgiving. I'll be there. Saturday arrived. Sarah wore a blazer she'd bought at Nordstrom without checking the price tag. She walked into her parents' house with her head high. The same crowd as Thanksgiving. Uncle Robert, Aunt Linda, Marcus and his Goldman Sachs friends. Jeff stood by the same fireplace, holding the same type of drink, wearing the same expression of casual superiority. Sarah, her mother said, surprised. You look professional. Marcus approached with his usual group. Hey, how's the job search going? Still applying places? Sarah smiled. Actually, I accepted an offer in January. I've been working for a few months now. Oh yeah? Where at? Stripe. I'm a senior software developer, leading our accessibility initiative. Jeff's attention snapped to her. Stripe? The fintech company? That's the one. He set down his drink. What's a position like that paying these days? If you don't mind me asking. Sarah met his eyes steadily. Base salary is $175,000. plus equity that vested at about 40,000 last quarter. Benefits are excellent. The room went quiet. Jeff's face cycled through several expressions. Confusion, calculation, realization. His mouth opened, then closed. Marcus stared at her. That's more than I make. Sarah shrugged. The online degree worked out pretty well. The silence stretched for what felt like an eternity. Sarah watched the information settle over the room like snow, cold and undeniable. Jeff cleared his throat. Well, congratulations. Stripe's doing impressive work. No jokes about YouTube tutorials now. No comparisons to his nephew playing video games. Just the awkward recognition that he'd been completely wrong. Marcus pulled Sarah aside while the others drifted back to safer conversations. Why didn't you tell me? Sarah looked at her brother, really looked at him. Because you didn't ask. You assumed my degree was worthless, so you never bothered to ask what I was actually doing with it. I didn't mean to. Yes, you did. At Thanksgiving, you laughed along with Jeff. You stood there while he humiliated me, and you said nothing because defending me would have made you look less impressive to your friends. Marcus's face reddened. That's not fair, isn't it? You've spent years making me feel like I took the easy path because I couldn't handle a real university. But you know what the difference was? You had mom and dad paying your tuition. You had a dorm room and meal plans and summers off. I had a basement apartment and a 7-Eleven name tag and 3 hours of sleep a night. We both ended up with degrees. Mine just cost me more. Her brother looked away. I'm sorry. I really am. Sarah's anger softened slightly. I know you are. But sorry doesn't change the fact that you believed their judgment mattered more than having my back. Her father appeared, drink in hand, expression curious. Everything all right here? Fine, Sarah said. Just catching up. Her father nodded slowly. Your mother told me about your new position. Stripe is quite reputable. I'll admit, I had my doubts about that online program. It wasn't about the program, Dad. It was about the work I put in. He studied her for a moment, and something shifted in his face. Recognition, perhaps. Maybe even respect. You're right. I apologize for not seeing that sooner. It wasn't a perfect apology. It didn't erase the years of disappointment. But it was something. Emily found Sarah later on the back patio. I always knew you'd do something amazing. Everyone else was just too blind to see it. Thanks for speaking up at Thanksgiving. Even though nobody heard you. Emily smiled. They're hearing you now, though. Pretty loud and clear. Inside, Sarah could see Jeff talking animatedly to Marcus, probably asking about Stripe's hiring process, wondering if his connections might get him a referral. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her mother approached with careful steps. I made your favorite dessert. Lemon bars. Sarah accepted the peace offering. Thanks, Mom. I should have supported your choices more. Your father and we got caught up in appearances. What the neighbors would think. What it looked like. We forgot to ask what it meant to you. It meant everything, Sarah said quietly. It still does. Her mother squeezed her hand. I see that now. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. 2 years later, Sarah stood in front of 300 engineers at a tech conference in Austin, Texas. The presentation title glowed on the massive screen behind her, Building Inclusive Financial Technology. Lessons from the ground up. She'd been invited as a keynote speaker. Her work at Stripe had revolutionized how the company thought about accessibility. The framework she developed was now being adopted by fintech companies across the industry. Forbes had featured her in their 30 under 30 list. MIT had asked her to guest lecture. The basement apartment in Queens felt like a lifetime ago. After her talk, a young woman approached nervously. Excuse me, Ms. Chun? I just wanted to say thank you. I'm finishing my degree at Southern New Hampshire University. Online program. And sometimes I feel like it doesn't count, you know? Like I'm not a real computer science student. Sarah smiled with understanding that came from lived experience. Let me tell you something. That feeling? Use it. Let it fuel you. Because when you prove everyone wrong, and you will, it's going to feel incredible. The woman's eyes brightened. Did you ever doubt yourself? Every single day. Still do sometimes. But I learned that doubt just means you're pushing yourself beyond what feels safe. That's where growth happens. Later that evening, Sarah had dinner with Priya, who'd become both a mentor and friend. They sat at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the Austin skyline. Marcus called this morning, Sarah mentioned. He's leaving Goldman Sachs. Priya raised an eyebrow. Career change? He wants to work in tech. Asked if Stripe was hiring. Sarah laughed. I told him to apply like everyone else. He actually seemed okay with that. Their relationship had improved. Not perfect, but honest. Marcus had learned humility. Sarah had learned forgiveness. They were building something new from the ruins of sibling rivalry. Her phone buzzed. A text from Destiny, her old roommate from Queens, now a registered nurse in Brooklyn. Just bought my first apartment. Remember when we thought we'd be broke forever? Sarah typed back with a grin. Remember when we thought we'd never be good enough? The response came immediately. Turns out we were always good enough. The world just needed to catch up. Sarah looked out at the city lights, thinking about all the basements and break rooms and late-night study sessions that had brought her here. The mockery, the doubt, the shame that had felt so crushing at the time. It all mattered. It all counted. Not despite the struggle, but because of it. If you've stayed with me until the end of Sarah's story, thank you. It means the world. If this resonated with you, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me about your own journey. Subscribe to the channel because I've got more stories about people who refused to let others define their worth. And let me know in the comments what kind of story you want to hear next. Sarah Chin proved that your path doesn't have to look like everyone else's to get you where you belong. Sometimes the unconventional route builds exactly the strength you need. See you in the next one.